Whoa, that money clip us now, the new now looks like. Whoa, upgrade her diamonds now, her girlfriends are like. Whoa, 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 whoa. That money clip us now, the new now looks like. Whoa, upgrade her diamonds now, her girlfriends are like. Whoa, 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 whoa.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everybody that participated in that. Y'all full? Y'all get enough to eat? Good. Y'all have fun with the activities? Yeah, I'm glad y'all did. I'm glad y'all did. So now we have the opportunity to get serious, to really talk about things. We're gonna go into the Any Given Monday podcast. This will be the first episode, so thank you all for joining me on this one. We really appreciate it. A lot of us worked hard. This is our inspirations. It's not just something that we put together a podcast for you all. It is a podcast for men for sure. But a lot of us have podcast aspirations, working and want to work in television and radio, and we're putting this together. So we thank you all for being here for the first episode. So thank you so much. So from your activities, y'all got your points. I know some of y'all were upset about it, like, we got robbed. But there are plenty more ways to get more points, and that is definitely to participate in the podcast, right? So this podcast is Any Given Monday is going to be monthly. So you will see this on your social medias. We'll make sure we send this stuff out to where you can take a look at it. You can interact. You can you can make sure you be on it. But every time we do Any Given Monday, every time we do Raw, we will do a live Any Given Monday as well. So make sure you take a look at, keep a lock out there for this podcast when this comes out. We're gonna do one in February. We're gonna do one in March. Then we'll be right back here again in April for another one. All right. It's got great topics and everything like that. Also, you all have playbooks in front of you, right? This is another opportunity for you all to get more points for your teams. You have questions in the playbook. All those questions in there in that playbook are going to be talked about and asked up here on the stage with my guests. So you got an opportunity to write things down. If you have questions, if you participate and you have comments that you want to make, when I come to the audience and ask there, make sure you can stand up. People will get the mics to you. All right. You can ask the questions. You get points. The more interactive you are. This is an interactive podcast. So the more interactive you are with the podcast, the more points your team gets. All right. Also, you get points for attendance. All right. So if we see you involved in the podcast, or you're making comments in the podcast that is outside, you get points for that. Right. You get points for showing up in April. So if your whole squad shows up in April, you get points. If you only get 3 people, and this is to the captains, if you only get 3 people showing up on your team, I don't know how many points you get. That's all about the producer. But you're going to probably get less than the people that show up. So that's holding yourself accountable, holding your team, captains holding your team accountable, right? So if you're like, I'm going to tell you this, if somebody can't make it, have somebody fill in, invite them here, right? Invite somebody else to the church. Hey, I got a spot. You should definitely come to Raw. And they come in, have them sit down. New person, you're introducing no people. You're getting more people involved, getting more people here. All right. So that's more ways to get points. There'll also be other ways. KJB will let you all know about that. But I want to get into this podcast. This is 8:33, and we got a lot to talk about. All right. So one thing I want to do is I want to bring out my first guest. This is a dear friend of mine. Y'all know him. Y'all, and I know him. I love him to death. But he holds me accountable for everything. French Thompson. Let's go, French. Yes, sir. Second guest. Y'all know him. Y'all love him. Everybody loves him. This is Tarrant County's finest pastor. This is our pastor. We love him to death. Pastor Robert White. Let's go. All right. Gentlemen, I appreciate y'all joining me today on Any Vegan Monday, the first episode.
First episode. Let's
Yeah.
go.
You guys helped me put this together, so I appreciate it. Everybody in the back that did well, I appreciate that as well. So, our topics today, we talked about this before, and this is something that we always constantly talk about as community. This is something you preach all the time. And then at the same time, our second topic is going to be about accountability. I just said that about with you. We hold each other accountable, but you started that off with me first, so
Yes, sir.
we got to definitely talk about that. But let's definitely get in the community. What I'm going to do is we'll have some questions. They have the questions already. Then we'll go out to them. We'll talk about that. Then we'll go right into accountability. All right.
Yes,
Feel the
sir.
pressure. They got the questions already.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, they have them. You about to get them, but yeah, but it'll be great. But let's talk about community. So like, let's start with Pastor. What's your actual personal definition of community?
Yeah, so I think when you take community, you can actually break it down into two words: common unity, right? So the things that we have in common and they bring us together. And they're the things that we now walk through life with. So, I look at community and I think common unity. I think like when I'm with French is a part of my community, but there's some
Yes.
things that we found that we have in common, mainly for us, right? It started with Jesus. He came to the church.
Yeah, for
He's a
sure.
believer. I'm a believer. That's what any believer has in common. We have Jesus and he brings us to this unity. But there may be other things that bring you to this place of common unity. And here's the thing, like I have to make a choice though, that this common thing that we have and this unity that we have around it, we're going to allow it to move us forward in a relationship.
Yes.
So community, I mean, we talk about community kind of in general. We're like, oh man, we label communities with an adjective and then community behind it, right? The Black community, the Christian community, the this community, the that community. And oftentimes these people aren't even walking together in relationship. So we kind of lump people in the community without them acknowledging that I'm walking with the person.
Yeah.
So oftentimes what we do is we kind of inadvertently force people into communities they've not even acknowledged they're a part of. Right. And you could say, like, oh man, you were born into this community. It's like, wait. Because we have this thing in common, and we have this thing that unifies us, it gives us the potential to be community. But community has to be intentional.
Yeah, for sure.
It gives us the potential and the intentional have to come together. The common unity is the potential. But then when we decide to walk together, that's the intentional part of community.
Okay, I want to come back to that because you actually talked about categorizing. So I want to come right back to the categorizing. French, what's your definition, your personal definition of community?
Yeah, I mean, it was hard to follow up with that, but I like the community piece is really about connection, right? Finding something that binds you versus repels.
Yeah.
And when I think about the communities that I have been a part of or ones that I have attempted to be in, realizing that there are some things that are either going to pull you in or push you out for various reasons. And maybe because that community is unified, to your point, around something that maybe I am not necessarily connected with or in tune with it. But I think it is really about that connection because if you think about a spider web or any other, or really atomic bonds, right? You think about it in terms of positive and negative electrons pulling you in or repelling, which creates something bigger than itself.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's one of the things that should come out of community is that the collective should be greater than the individuals that are in there because there are things that are being bonded, things are being connected that is producing something out. Otherwise, it's just like a social club.
Well, yeah, agreed. And but let me ask you this: have you ever been rejected from a community you were trying to get into?
Oh, yeah.
How did you feel about that?
Oh yeah, yeah. So I did my first degree in physics from Morehouse College, which is a HBCU, and then all right, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Oh, they getting points. But I went for my civil engineering degree. I went to University of Michigan, and so there we go. And so
Wolverines in the house.
but when I went there, I thought that I would find myself connected to be it the African American community or folks that might be from DC area. That's where I'm from. But I realized that I was being rejected out of there because they didn't feel that I was a part of that community. Either because, being from Morehouse is like, oh, you don't have the same connection that we have, or this is really Midwestern versus the South. And it hurt. I mean, it took me about 2 to 3 months, kind of like, hey, what's really going on here? Until you realize that hey, that's not the community I'm supposed to be a part of. Where am I finding this connection and end up finding that? And then after a while, people start opening up to you. But yeah, I mean, it was tough. And I still tell that story today, just the difference between, different schools and things like that.
Yeah, and I mean, like you said, being from Morehouse,
Yeah.
Being from DC, and
Yeah.
then trying to get in there, but being rejected. But that's also categorizing yourself, being categorized.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
what's ways that we can do to keep from being categorized so we won't be rejected, Pastor, or like or what can we do to make sure that other people don't feel categorized?
Yeah, I think
You know what I mean?
I don't want to say the categories are bad. I think they are a way for us to discover common unities, right?
Right.
They are good. I think the problem is, to use French's example, when I use the assumption that because I'm this, we're going to be together.
Yeah.
Like we're going to walk in step, right? That assumption then sets us up for the level of kind of like some disappointment or some frustration or rejection. I think the thing that we have to do is we have to make sure that if the category is our baseline, we don't just stay there,
Yeah.
right? And I think this is the frustration that we have in the adjective in front and then community behind, whichever one you find yourself a part of. You think everybody's supposed to think like you, act like you, respond like you, do things you do, and you find yourself frustrated because the adjective that I associated myself with, the category that I put myself in, that I also put you in, we were supposed to be this. We were supposed to be, listen, we can start here, but we have to build.
Yes.
And I think this is the problem with categories. We stop at them. They're not bad initially. They're great, like I said before, with the potential.
Yeah.
But now I have to be intentional to grow in community with you. I have to be intentional to say, man, beyond this, what do we have in common? I've been teaching on this vision, values, and verbiage thing, right? The adjective gets us in alignment in the room.
Yeah.
But now I have to have a shared vision with you. Where are we
Yes.
going?
Where we-
Amos 3:3. How can we two walk together unless they agree? On what? Vision.
That's good.
On what? Values. On what? Verbiage. Hey, man, we don't talk like that.
Yeah.
We don't use that word.
Yeah.
We don't say these things. Like, that's when community becomes intentional. And now we share this thing. Now we can build, right?
Hey, I tell you what's very interesting as you were talking through it. I was thinking about just in my own nuclear family, right? Wife, 2 kids. And they're young, 6 and 9, and we're teaching them this is Team Thompson.
That's right.
Right. And so you think about for your children, you are their first community. And the question is, what does that look like for them? Do they understand shared values, vision?
Y'all got verbiage at your house.
Right. I mean, we
Right.
have verbiage, but
We do too.
but what's very interesting, you think about, like, and my wife, I'm not even telling any secrets, but she came from a broken home, right? Divorce,
Yeah.
family split, right? So when you think about how she relates to family as a community, and then how she is, as we are a collective, trying to pour into our kids
Right.
what family looks like and building that up, and then prepping them
Yep.
to be able to go out and
Yep.
find community with others.
Right.
I think as we look at society, that is some of the challenges that we have, is that we don't have good examples of what good community is.
See, and I think that right there becomes the thing when we, again, the categories don't have to be bad.
Yeah.
So that we can sit across this platform, trying to be general because it's a podcast.
Yeah.
But if we can sit across this platform and say, hey man, we are Christian Black men.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great categorically that we find that unity. But now, like the three of us, right? Let's just talk. We bond outside of this environment.
Yeah.
We bond outside of like the environments that categorize us. We've moved on from that, right?
Yeah.
We've encouraged each other, held each other accountable, challenged each other, like presented certain things, right? So I know they got a deal. They tell their kids, they I'm a Thompson. I'm blah, 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 blah. I don't know it. 'Cause I ain't a Thompson.
Yeah.
But his kids know it.
Yeah.
And I know they have vision, values, and verbiage that line up with that. We got the white family big 4: honor God, know yourself, build wealth, bless others. Like my kids know that, right? And I know that we've built the community beyond that. So now when my kids see your kids say, I'm a Thompson, blah, 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 or your kids see my kids say the white family big 4, they don't have to be the same thing. The category was what lined us.
Yeah.
Now we build community and there's diversity
Right.
even within the community.
Yeah.
And we respect the diversity within the community. But now your kids see my kids were older with the example of, wait a minute, they took what their dad said. We taking what our dad said. We're going to do this with our kids.
Yeah.
You're going to do this with your kids.
Yep.
That Apostle Jay-Z said, your seed, get with her seed. Get with, right?
Yeah.
That's how we keep all in the family, right?
Mhm.
That's the world gets it.
Ooh.
Yeah.
The world
Right.
gets it.
Right.
It was
right.
a dude told me and my dad one time, man, we were talking to him. He's a dude, he was not of our hue. And he was a part of a community, and it wasn't our specific community. And he said this to us. He said, man, he was like, y'all got to understand, because my dad was a preacher. I'm a preacher. I'm a multiple generation preacher. And he says, man, y'all got to understand, it's hard to draw people out of the world. The world is good to its people.
Yeah.
They got a community they building on. Like they ride or die for it, right? Whether it's sin, whether it's values, whether it's money, whatever it is, they ride for their values.
Yeah.
And here's us, man, like, I don't know, man. French stole my shirt color tonight. I ain't messing with it.
Yeah. Like that,
You know what I'm saying?
that dude building boundaries. Now, so Now, how would you say, what would you say to the person that's on the outside looking in? And I'll give you for example. I'm from Chicago, right? I just got here. Maybe you know it. You know it. You know it. But I'm from Chicago. I just got here. My family and I just got here
Hey
2
man,
or 3 years
I'm
ago.
sorry. You say you were in Chicago. Hey man, he gave it everything he had to represent
Hey,
Chicago.
I'll rep Chicago by myself. I'll do it all day,
That was
all
awesome.
day. But yeah, so just coming in,
I'm
you
sorry.
made me laugh. But just coming in like 3 years ago, that's I'm we have our ways in Chicago, right? We're
Yeah.
not somebody that's necessarily so open and about things. I mean, even when we got here, we were here day one, and all of a sudden the neighbors, we outside just trying to get rid of garbage. The neighbors is in our driveway talking to us, and we're like, and we were out there for 4 hours. Now I'm sitting there like, and I don't even know half my neighbors where we were back then.
Right.
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 At
right.
all. I mean, because just don't step outside. You keep your head down, you keep walking. There's certain areas you just don't go into,
Listen,
right?
I'm from Long Beach. My neighbors slowed down when I first moved here. They slowed down in front of my house to wave.
Yeah.
So the hand come up.
Yeah,
The
and
slow,
you
I'm like,
like,
no.
yo, hey, get in the house, get in the house, get in the house, get in the house, get in the house.
Duck behind some bushes,
Get in the
dog. I
house.
was jacked up.
Right.
I thought I
And
was dying the first day on my block. It was
it's
over.
out there, right? So we out there, we're, us being from Chicago, we're so reserved.
Yeah.
We're not like that. But then we come here, but everybody's pushing to see what you about. Where your name? Where you from? Where what do you do? What do you do?
What do you do?
What do you do? But
That's a man question.
yeah. Yeah,
That's a man
that's a
question.
man question.
Yeah.
But what do you do when you're out on the outside looking in, and you may be trying to get into a community, but you don't know how to get into that situation? Like,
So I just recently
join church.
Yeah, go
There
to
it
church.
is.
I just recently reread a book called Leadership and Self-Deception.
Mhm.
Yeah. That's a good
And in
one,
the
man.
book, it talks about that we typically live in a box. And in this box, we make assumptions about people outside of our box. Even before we make a decision to, like, to your point, like engage. Like, maybe I see Fabian, right? And I'm like, hey, Fabian looks like a cool dude that I want to connect with. But before I even make the decision to say, let me introduce myself to Fabian, I make him in my mind. Well, Fabian, maybe he doesn't like, or maybe he seems too busy. He's shaking hands with somebody else. Or, you know, well, maybe he's shaking hands with somebody else because he's trying to avoid me.
Nah.
Or maybe he's trying to avoid me because maybe he met someone that looked like me before, blah, blah, blah. Now I've gone down 5, 6 different iterations of what I think Fabian thinks. And
None of it was Fabian.
never was Fabian.
Yeah.
Right. And I think for us, we need to figure out when we're trying to enter a community is to open up that box and say, hey, I'm just going to connect with a person just to connect.
Yeah.
Right. Now, if that person makes a choice to accept or reject, that's on them. I am not making a decision or judging them based on that. But I think oftentimes we just operate in this box of belief that wrongly or rightly has we've been placed into, but we really have to work to get out of this box to be able to connect with people whom either look like us, don't look like us, or things like that. Go ahead.
And I was gonna say, or not only not making judgment about Fabian, but don't make a self-judgment about yourself.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
This is not my community. I tried. It did not work. I'm going to find my tribe.
Yeah.
I'm going to find my people. And it's not an indictment on me that this group of people wasn't my people.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think so many times, man, we start with the category as a common unity. If it doesn't go past that, it's not an indictment on me. I did not change.
Right.
I did not lose value because this community was not my community. I did not lose worth because this community was not my community. Here's a problem. We're so busy looking for the affirmation of people because we don't know who we are.
That's good.
That when they don't tell us, yes, you're that dude, you're my guy, you did this, you did. What we do is we walk away like, what was wrong with me? Why did Fabian not want me? Blah, blah, blah. And then now we do, right, to protect ourselves when we see a Fabian in the future, we reject them before they can reject us.
Right.
And we inadvertently miss out on our community.
No.
And this is everywhere. I mean, this is personal, professional, all these places, right? You can think about it. Hey, maybe there was a job that you missed, or maybe there was a group at work that you wanted to connect with. Them not accepting you is not, hey, you aren't good enough, you aren't performing, you aren't doing those types of things. It's not an indictment on you. But to your point, we oftentimes can see ourselves trying to conform
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
conform to what we think said community wants us to be.
Didn't the Bible say something about not
And we do
conform?
not conform to this world. Be ye transformed by renewing your mind. Yeah, I mean,
But you know,
something
the
like
book
that.
is irrelevant according to some people.
but we often, and I see that, right? I mean, I'll go back to the example of my kids, right? We're trying to teach them independence, trying to teach them these types of things. They come home either saying some things, doing some things like, "Hey, where'd you get that?" Right? And now I have to be careful to ask in a way that is not convicting,
Yeah.
because they are trying to connect with somebody, and they are, as kids, like, it's very interesting watching kids, because they are some of the most accepting and rejecting people
Man.
Right,
up
man.
front.
Man.
Right? They are worse, it's more savage than
Oh,
adults.
they savage.
Yes.
Right?
Savage.
Jesus said be childlike.
Right.
I'm just saying, like, there has to be a level of accepting and rejecting. And I'm not saying be rejecting in a rude way,
Right.
but kids will say, like, you're not my tribe.
Yeah.
Straight up.
And I'm good with that.
Yeah.
And they just walk on and move on to where their tribe is. And when they love hard, they love hard.
Oh,
Yep.
yeah.
And I think there's something to be learned from that, man.
That's
Like,
good.
these are my people. I love hard. I found out these weren't my people. Okay, I'm good.
Right.
And I wish I had that. My son, and I don't know if some of y'all talk to my son as men, like
Yeah.
having a conversation with my son. He does not care if you like him or
Yeah.
you don't like him, but he has better conversations with adults than he does with people his age. But and so he gets rejected quite a bit by people that are his age, but he don't care. He does not care. As long as he has a conversation with someone, and it's mainly me, and we're having like real conversations about football or something like that. But I noticed that he's doesn't have any fear about talking to anyone at the church.
Yeah.
He loves being here.
Yeah.
Loves being here. But another thing is a way of opening up, and I've realized that I'm able to open up with a lot of these gentlemen in this room. Marciel and I just actually opened up about a certain thing over here before we got going. We were open. I was able to open myself up and be vulnerable to people, and that actually draws people in. People that are just like me, people that have the same issues, same things, and then it allows me to build that community in that particular category.
I'm gonna bring up a word that's associated with community because I need to say something about it that men don't want to bring up. But community is a place to be loved.
Yeah.
And I know men are like, I want to be respected. But really, respect is how we spell love.
Yes.
Right?
Ooh,
You
that's
show me
good.
that you love me because you respect me, right?
That's good.
I know the French loves me because he respects me. There's a few guys in here like JaMar French, I'll say Mark Person, Marcus Brookins. These are the guys that do the delicate work of letting me pastor them and be their friends at the same time. It is really a delicate blend. I know that they love me because when I have to say something tough, they respect my position enough to do it. They never have to be like, man, I love you, bro. I love you. Now, I don't mind it because I'm secure enough in my manhood to receive that. The reason why I bring that up, because the community is a place where I want to be loved. Now, for men, we spell love with respect.
Yeah, I'm writing that
But-
down right now. That's good.
Yeah, love requires risk.
Yeah.
So you talk about the being vulnerable piece. You want a community, but you're not willing to be vulnerable. Love requires risk. And here's the thing: if you're not willing to take the risk to be vulnerable with somebody else, they're going to, especially in the community of men, game recognize game. That's the hood way we say it.
Right.
Yep.
I can see that you holding back. I don't necessarily trust you now.
Right.
You didn't respect me enough to be honest with me. Men spell love, respect. You can't be honest with me. You don't keep it real. You're not 100. Whatever iteration of that we throw around. Now I'm guarded. You're guarded. And then we say stuff like, I could just never click with that dude. He just wasn't real. You weren't vulnerable.
You want vulnerable.
Yeah.
Because love requires risk. You have to take the chance to say something, be vulnerable. And then when they reciprocate, now it's like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
We category to commonality to unity to it, and we keep elevating, we
That's
keep
good.
building.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
No, I think one of the things, so I grew up in DC and, had a crew that I rode with in different, realms, but I didn't necessarily understand or find like respect and love as you talked about it until I got to Morehouse, right? A school, all men, right? Women right across the street. We spent a whole bunch of time over there. God bless. But
It's another podcast.
yeah, still a podcast. I mean, yeah.
Get out.
Statute of limitations over 20 years ago. But I realized there how, man, you talk about diversity, right? It's diversity of who we are, and then how you are willing to, when you are willing to open up and be vulnerable and connect, be it at the lunch table, be it on the basketball court, be it on, a long trek, you missed the bus back from the club and we all walk in, don't know how we're gonna get there. Right. But you find that community there, right? But but it's built upon trust.
Right.
Hey, I know you got my back. I know that if something goes down, hey dude, you probably need to be careful on that, right? But we can respond one or two ways to that.
Yeah.
We can be like, dude, I got it. I'm good.
Yeah.
Right. And they're like, all right, we see.
Right.
Or you be like, man, I appreciate it.
Man, when I came here, I was a youth pastor, and I would oftentimes compare the lack of discipleship in the church with the amazing discipleship in gangs, because I'm from
Come
Long
on.
Beach.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So I would be like, the discipleship in gangs is awesome.
Yeah.
Like, y'all think I'm being funny,
no.
but
no,
the reality
no,
is,
yeah, for
like,
real.
these jokers do a great job of
Yeah.
indoctrinating, sharing vision.
Yes.
You got
They
some
do.
gangs called King Disciples.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. You got
Yes.
gangs in Chicago called the disciples, right?
Yes.
So like when we find ourselves in a position though where we are willing to say, like, hey man, I know you got my back, I know these things. I was vulnerable with you. I put myself in a position saying, hey man, I'm looking for a community. I see this commonality. We on the same block, whatever the case is.
Yeah.
We start building, and then they start saying, okay, now I know we didn't get to accountability as much, but now it's like, hey man, based on this community that we're in,
Yeah.
based on this community that we're in, like we wear gold shirts.
Right.
You on the block, we wear gold shirts.
Hey,
Come on.
You come in here with this black shirt on.
Hey.
What happened?
Right.
Right?
Because I'm not an alpha. That's why I ain't wearing no
I
gold
am
shirt.
not. All right, now see now. Now.
No gold shirt. Yo.
Now.
Yo.
See,
Accountability.
dang, man.
Accountability.
Gotta watch what I wear to church now, man. I thought this was a safe space.
I think though, I think men overall, even beyond respect, I think men are afraid of accountability.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like
Absolutely. Well,
and
we take accountability as disrespect.
right.
When you don't fully understand what accountability is and what it
For
can
real.
do. Am I moving too fast on that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
So we gonna get into that, but I want to reach out because this is an interactive podcast, right? So
Got
I
it.
want to see before we go too far into it, I want to see if there's any questions out there. Does anybody have any question? Steve has a question. Can we
All
get
right.
Steve a mic?
Yeah,
Producer.
points, team
Here,
one.
he's on his way.
Points,
KJB's
team
on his
one.
way.
KJB
He's on his
sauntering.
way.
He's sauntering. He needs to move quicker.
Okay, I wanted to go back to stand up. All right.
Yeah.
Well, praise the Lord. Okay, I wanted to go back to when we were talking about rejection of community. How can a person separate rejection from their worth?
That's a great question.
It's a
man.
good question.
It's a great question. I'm gonna start with this. Now, I'm sure French is gonna wax eloquent after this in such a way that only a fine and gentry brother could do. I think the first thing is I think it's difficult when I don't know my worth to separate rejection from my worth, because a part of the rejection was connected to my discovery. I hope that made sense. Like if I don't know me fully and embrace me fully, if you know me, I'm a personality assessment junkie. I'm a leadership development junkie. I want to know me well. So much so to the point where I'm like seriously okay with me in the areas in which I know that I'm doing the version of me that is the best version of me. I'm so cool with it that like you could look at me and say something about my weaknesses and I'll be like, yeah. And if you want to help me go on this journey and we build something together, those are my weaknesses. Pick up my slack, homie.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with it. Like if you're good at it, pick up my slack. Let's roll. Because I know me so well that it's like I'm gonna do me to the best of my ability. Like nobody's gonna take me off of being me. But when I didn't know that though, so I'm not gonna act like I've always been here. When I didn't know that, I would stand on platforms like this and I would try to receive the affirmation of people. And when they didn't receive me, I'm a pastor and I'm a uniquely different type of pastor.
Mm-hmm.
And I find myself in circles of people who don't necessarily invite me into certain things because I'm different. I can say that in a whole bunch of different ways. It's a podcast, so it's going out in public. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to Cat Williams anybody.
Right. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that.
Hey, how you doing
It's
today?
the first show,
Let me tell
man.
you about
Right.
It's the first show, man. It's the first one.
I read 7,000 books when I was 9. But point being, when I didn't know who I was, me going to those circles, because I thought my identity was as a pastor and a preacher, me going to those circles and getting rejected, it was a part of my discovery. So in my discovery, I was like, yo, something wrong with me. Why don't they want to do that? Da, da, da. Why is it this group of people is always inviting me? These guys don't invite me. Blah, blah, blah. Then I found out morally and value-wise, we don't share the same values. So then I realized, oh, this was a part of my discovery. And I did take the rejection to heart. But here's what I used it for. Not to make me feel bad, but to find out some things about me. Because here's the reality. The hood got so many good sayings. Even a broken clock is right 2 times a day.
Mm-hmm.
So at some point, right, the clock is saying something. And so I can look at it and say, you know what? I'm going to go discover what it is that they didn't like, and I'm going to find out what it was. Now, if it's something that I'm saying I got to get better at, I got to change, I'm going to do that. If it's something that's like, no, this is at the core who I am, that's their loss now that I'm not in that community.
Yeah.
But the rejection taught me something. And I'm going to say this. I think at times it's okay for the rejection to be personal because it's going to teach you something. I was rejected because X. When I found out X was who I was, I'm glad I was rejected because of X. That is personal.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That is personal. But it made me understand I'm okay with that though. And every time you reject me for that, I'm good. And when you reject me for something I need to get better at, guess what? That's the whole piece about accountability. I need to now say to myself, who do I really want to be? Like at the end of the day, do I want to be this halfway version of myself?
Mm-hmm.
Or do I want to take this feedback now and grow and be a better version of me?
Mm.
I don't like the way they gave it to me, but that doesn't mean it can't benefit me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's good.
I like it.
So one thing that I think you had given it to us a while ago, and I think this can help as we think about separating that, or having a much more better self worth and respect and understanding where it is. And you gave it to us a while ago, called 8 Decades of a Man's Life, and this is really good, right? And so from 0 to 9, the first decade is security. A man leads a man in this decade. Even Jesus had Joseph. 2 responses to insecurity: fear and rage. 10 to 19, growth and development. Jesus grows in stature and in favor, right? And so your teen years, you should be growing in there. 20 to 29, discovery and exploration. We search for what we learned in previous decades here. A man runs into 3 C's: courtship, children, and careers. The problem is we end up with these things and we've lost ourselves. 30 to 39, purpose. David, Joseph, and Jesus. Problem is our purpose comes into conflict with our previous decisions in those previous decades. See the 3 C's. God does not change your purpose because of bad decisions. And you keep going on there. 40 to 49 is legacy. 50 to 59 is promise. 60 to 69 is preparation. 70 to 79 is purpose renewed. There's a reason for you still being here. But I think to your point is that what happens is we don't spend the right amount of time marinating in decades 1, 2, and 3,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so we are half baked chicken,
Yeah.
half cooked,
Come on.
raw meat, right? And so we are trying now to be plated and consumed, but people, we are being
Bloody
rejected.
mess.
We're a bloody mess. People are being rejected, right? Because either it stinks, because when chicken ain't cooked right, it stinks. Raw meat is bloody, right? Full of bacteria, viruses. And so we're over here trying to be connected in community, but we messed up. The only thing that's meant to be eaten raw is veggies.
Now, French, here's the thing. Because you right. Here's what happens. We are half baked, bloody mess put on a plate. Now, most people with sense not gonna eat it. People with no value for themselves will. People who have no value for themselves will. Then they'll turn around and blame you for their foolishness. Now you were wrong. Don't get it twisted. You were wrong, but then they come around and blame you, so they put more rejection on you. Here's what you need, and I don't care what decade you're in. This is why you need a pastor. And I have not said this in the past because I feel like sometimes when I talk, I don't want to ever sound arrogant.
Yeah.
But if I'm your pastor, this is why you need a pastor. You need a chef that knows how to put you back in the oven, not overcook you,
Yes, good.
and not try to serve you wrong. This is the reason why the church is the place that it's supposed to be. Because here's the thing. A good chef will look at that chicken, and here's the thing. They'll be like, that's undercooked. I could touch it and tell. I could smell it and tell. I could look at it and tell it needs 5 more minutes. It needs 7 more minutes. It needs to be cut and redistributed. It needs to be laid down in this regard. Here's the problem. Many of us want to just go out, the bloody mess that we are, and be like, somebody going to taste me, and you're going to kill them. And the very thing that you loved, you killed.
Yep.
That's so good.
That's good. That's good. Woo. Let's go into accountability. I'm getting timed. We gotta go into accountability. And it's 9:05, so let's push it here. Real quick, what is your definition of accountability?
I'll let you.
What's your personal definition of accountability?
I'm gonna say this real quick. I think accountability, I'm going to tell you where context of accountability has to happen in relationships.
Yes.
And accountability is a two-way street in which people decide that they want to see the best in the person that they love. It's a two-way street in which the two people decide that they want to see the best for the person that they love. Like if you don't have my best interest in heart, you ain't holding me accountable.
Yeah.
You're a manipulator.
Exactly.
You're abusive.
That's good.
You're a control freak. You're critical and judgmental. But when you love me, you want what's best for me. That's where accountability comes from.
Yeah.
That's good. I view it very similar, but I'm gonna use this analogy. I tell this to a lot of teams I lead, right? When you have relationships, you have to build relationship equity, right? So you're making deposits as well as you're making withdrawals, right? And so when you're affirming a person's deposits, when you are correcting or redirecting, that's withdrawals. I think accountability is the ability to make a withdrawal from somebody without being overdrawn.
That's good.
Right? That I have enough in there that you are okay. And you have enough trust in me that when you're making that withdrawal, you know that you aren't going to destroy me, put me in a situation that I can't recover from it. But I have enough in me that I can push in there. But I have also, because of that accountability, a lot of times we think accountability is negative, right?
Yeah.
But accountability is, man, I'm affirming you. Hey, JaMar, yo, when you show me the video, yo, this is dope.
Right.
Yeah.
That's accountability because I'm pouring into what you were feeling, right? I'm pouring into what God has blessed you with, right? But oftentimes we think of accountability as like, hey man, I'm just cutting you. I'm just cutting you instead of stitching you up. Yep. Yeah.
I appreciate that because you know my love language is words of affirmation.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Mine too.
You really do love me. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
French, and I'm running out of time. I got my producers are back there like, but I do want to ask you this, French, and then I want to go. Yeah, it's going to definitely be a part 2, and then I'm going to take one question from the audience too. But you hold me accountable, right? When and why did you decide that you loved me and that you wanted to, like, you know what, JaMar is somebody I want to hold accountable? Like, when was that and why?
Yeah. So it's good because he spoke about how men spell love respect, right? And I don't know if you remember when we did the podcast, right? I was pretty much like raw and uncut, or authentically you. Authentically you was the title of the podcast when the episode when we did it on mine. And I decided like, hey man, I'm gonna hold him accountable. I'm gonna respect him. I'm gonna love him because you are you. Like you aren't hiding behind a mask. You're like, hey, this is just me.
Yeah.
And you're gonna love me or hate me, but this is just me. And I'm like, man, that's a person that I can get connected with. Because one, I see that is a gap that I have, right? Because of my Enneagram, I'm an achiever. I want to be liked. I want people to see the achievements, right? But I'm like, hey, I need to be more of that. So when I look at me as a person, I'm like, hey, as a man, I need to fill in the gaps too. Like my spouse is filling in a gap that God has created, right?
Yeah.
But there is also more community. If it was just Adam and Eve, he wouldn't create nobody else. He wouldn't say he wouldn't say multiply. Right. But I need other people to build with. I need other people. And if we do it right, and we do it in God's desire, then he's not coming down and messing up our language and Tower of Babel, right? But he's like, boom, they building together. I'm gonna support that.
Yeah.
They're building together. So that's how I chose. Like, hey man, this is somebody I can build with. That's probably the best way. Okay. Somebody I could build with, build my life, right? Build my accountability, build each other, and go from there.
Someone you found somebody that you felt like can grow, make you a better person.
Yeah,
for sure. I want to take a question from my audience. Anybody out there got a question? We got a question over there. It's dark.
Well, I have more of a statement than a question.
Okay.
Just going back to community and accountability. Like today, I've been going through, and so I had several brothers stop me, hey, Mark, what's going on? You okay? What's up? You all right? And so the community is, they know me, they know I'm like I'm always acting. I'm not my normal self.
Right.
So accountability is, okay, let me find out what's going on with Mark. Because I love Mark.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know what's going on with him. So I just respect all your brothers tonight to ask about me and what's going on. Because again, that's community and accountability.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's so
know
good.
know you enough to care for you, love on you.
Yeah.
Anybody
yeah.
else out there got a question, comment? Chris up here in the front. Oh, there we go. Rashad, Rashad, no, you go. You got one. Got the mic.
Look, I don't want no problems, so so real quick question: we're talking about accountability, right? A large part of accountability, transparency,
Yeah.
right? Men don't do well with transparency. One of the reasons that we don't do well with transparency is because there are fears that we have about people knowing who we truly are,
Yeah.
right? I don't want you to know how bloody of a piece of chicken I
Come
am,
on, that's good.
Yeah.
right? And so my question to you as we talk about accountability to the level of, people checking on you and things like that, but when we talk about true accountability, holding men accountable on both sides of that coin, as a broken man, how do I allow myself to be accountable and overcome that fear that I have? And on the other coin, as a man that sees you, how do I approach you as a broken man, knowing that you have fears about the elements of accountability that I'm going to address?
I'm going to address the latter before I address the former. The person who's approaching a man who's broken better remember he's also broken.
Yeah.
And what I wanted in my lowest level of brokenness, I need to give to a man who's broken. I think the biggest problem with us is we got it all together. When we approach a man who's broken, we act like we don't have anything wrong. We don't have fears. We don't have insecurities. We don't have issues. So now we want him to pull himself up by his bootstraps, get over it. What you afraid of? Stop acting like a sissy. Be a man. Like all of that talk is trash. Like I'm scared too.
Yeah.
I'm scared too.
Mirrors.
Like you know what I'm saying? Like the most I have I have fears about like messing my kids up.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
I mean, men don't want to say that out loud. I have a plan for my children, and I have a mantra. We say yes. I just told y'all that we got a white family, big four, and my kids can recite it. That don't mean I'm not scared.
Yeah.
And so when I'm approaching a man who's broken, I'm gonna let him know what my fears are.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing about transparency. I think for the first brother who you're describing who's broken, like how do I open up? To be honest, man, I think he needs to see it. And this is why I think the community is important because somebody should be modeling the vulnerability in such a way who is working through their fear in
Yeah.
community that he says, and I'm gonna go talk to JaMar about that because I saw how he dealt with talking about his own fears and brokenness. And he didn't talk about it like he had it all together. He talked about it like I'm in process.
Yes.
And so then when I go to JaMar and I say, man, I heard you say such and such. I know y'all been there, man. You pull that brother to the side, you go grab a guy like Mark, you be like, man, I've been going through too, man.
Yeah.
I haven't been myself.
Yeah.
Had some tragedy happen in my life, and I saw how you were vulnerable with them brothers. And man, what do I do?
Yeah.
Now I could be vulnerable because you were vulnerable. I honestly think we just got to do a better job in community of being broken
Yeah.
in front of each other.
Yeah.
And here's I said it before: love requires risk. And the truth of the matter is, somebody's gonna handle you well. Somebody's gonna handle you well. Like I just believe that God is that good. He doesn't leave himself without witness. Like Elijah's complaining and crying, like, God, I'm doing all this work for you. And I'm the only prophet left. He said, boy, I got 500 prophets ain't bowed down to Baal.
Yeah.
It's because you feel like you alone. Don't mean I ain't left other people out here
Yeah.
standing up with you. And so when we sit there and say, like, ain't no man that's transparent, you're lying. You got 3 sitting there right now.
Man.
You don't want to be transparent. So now here's what it is. I don't know no transparent men because you ain't looking.
No. And I mean, they right here. They literally I'll give you an example. The last time I think it was 2 Raws ago, I was up here I was asked to be a guest, and I was up here just talking about what I was going through, how I hated my job, things like that. And Jeremy Joseph walked up to me afterwards and he was like, "Man, I'm feeling the same things you do, feeling the same way you feel about certain things." And he was explaining stuff, and then we going back and forth and talking about things. And now, I mean, I've had dinners with this man. I've hung out with his man. This man and I are coaching a fifth grade basketball team right now together.
That's what's up.
And we developed a relationship like that just based off of me opening up and being vulnerable on this stage at Raw. And I mean, I will forever be grateful for that because Jeremy has said several things to me that have allowed me to grow. And we're actually holding each other accountable. We're holding each other accountable about aspirations that we have going forward. So I will always have Jeremy, bringing Jeremy along with me, asking him, how well are you doing with your stuff? How well are you doing with what's going on with you? Have you done this yet? Because that's what you said you wanted to do. And he's doing the same thing with me. Same thing with me.
I think one thing we've been approaching it or speaking from the guy that is broken, that is reaching, and all of us are broken. But if you're on the receiving end of that, be open.
Yeah.
Right. I truly believe that I've probably missed out on some really good relationships, right? Because I have not been open to receive. Either I'm been perceived too busy, or I'm moving, or I've even had people say to me, "Oh, you seem like you're busy."
Yeah.
Like, no, stop me. Like, what's going on? Hey, what's the conversation? Right. And I think I'm learning this so much more being a parent, right? When my son is like, "Hey, daddy, I got a question," or "Hey, daddy, let me tell you something," right? And I've had to make this like an active decision, and I encourage you all make an active decision every time that somebody asks you a question or is reaching out, because that is literally a reach out, right? Because eventually, like you were saying, Rashad, like you will stop reaching out,
Yeah.
right? And so I look at it like with my son, like I read several books of how men are like, "Hey, this is dedicated to my dad," and blah 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 blah. And I'm like, man, I wish I had a relationship with my dad like that, right? And so I got to sit back, like, hey, did I ever get rejected when I was reaching out?
Yeah.
Right. He's present. I grew up in a 2-parent household, right? Everything's cool, right? But my dad, my dad's dad wasn't there, so he didn't know how to respond to reaching out, right, and receiving. He did the best that he could do, but I'm sitting here like, man, well, my son is like, "Hey, dad, I got something." Even if it's like, "Hey, man, you supposed to be in bed. One more thing. All right, what is it? Let me hear it,"
Yeah.
because I don't know. At he's 9, at age 13, he may be saying, "Hey, dad, one more thing. I don't feel well."
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
"Hey,
Yeah.
dad, one more thing. I think I got messed up."
Yeah.
Right? But if I've conditioned him to be like, he's too busy. So all that being said, we as men in the semicircles that we're here, when somebody stops and says, "Hey, what's going on? Can I talk to you?" You got to be open, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because there's been some times that I've needed to reach out to men, haven't had somebody to reach out to. I've had some times I to reach out and somebody's there, and it's probably saved me. Not probably, it has saved me
Yeah.
from destruction.
And you can't be so caught up in your own stuff that you don't have margin for somebody else.
That margin.
There you go. There you
I
go.
think that's a big thing, man. I'm saying that as like Paul says, it's a good saying that Christ Jesus came to say, "Sinner whom I'm chief." I'm busy.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm too busy. I don't have the margin to give myself to somebody. I'm like, "Oh, you're a pastor. That's a part of your job." No, 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 no. But I'm talking about to pour into
Yeah.
another man.
Yeah.
Now, like you on my calendar for a counseling session, and now we done. Like to walk with a person.
Yeah.
You can't be so caught up in your own stuff and what you deem to be the thing that's going to make you who you want it to be, that you can't pour into somebody else. We gotta have margin. We gotta have margin. And I think we live our lives so over the edge of margin that we don't have the ability to be open
Yeah.
to these moments the Holy Spirit is giving us.
And I think full circle, that's where community comes in, right? Like if you have good community, then you have the margin to, hey, when we sitting at dinner, having a drink, laughing, then it's like, hey man, for real though,
Right.
like
Right.
this was going on.
Yep.
For real though, man, I need you to look out for me. And I think it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, a symbiotic relationship that be able to go from there. All right.
Yo, check it. Great conversation. I mean, we can talk about accountability all the time,
Yeah, that's
community
good.
all the time, and it's actually segueing into other topics. But we got a limited amount of time, and this podcast is going to be great because we got tons of topics to talk about. And then thank you all again for joining the first episode of Any Given Monday. again in April. It's gonna be live here again. But we got to close out, and I'm gonna close out with a special guest. Y'all know him. His name is Mr. Marcus Brookins.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
He is gonna be singing his own song. We gonna hear for the first time right here on the first episode of Any Given Monday. This is called "What a Time." Come on, Mr. Brookins.
If it ain't an argument, why?
What a time to be alive. Trust a God, yeah, that's the vibe. On a rooftop about a pool. Doesn't matter, cause I'm with you. What a time to be alive. Trust a God, yeah, that's the vibe. On a rooftop about a pool. Doesn't matter, cause I'm with you. Oh no. You say you love me. You say you care.
I want Marcus.
That was it. Thank you
Marcus.
guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hey, listen.
Had technical
The song
difficulties.
was good. You know,
Mark-
hey, podcast.
Sexual chocolate.
Hey, podcast. If you couldn't hear it, it's because it's undisclosed.
It's undisclosed. Well, we got you next time.
Accountability.
We got you next time. But hey, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining Raw. Thank you so much for the Any Given Monday podcast. Y'all keep it locked. Make sure you keep it locked so that you can see the next podcast in February. And then this one will actually be cut and be coming out, I want to say next week on Monday. So make sure you take a look at that as well. If you got any other topics you want to talk about on Any Given Monday, make sure you let us know. You can go to KJB. You come to myself. If you want to be on the podcast, you can definitely do that. We'll be shooting each month on that as well. All right. And of course, make sure you invite more people to Any Given Monday in April, because I want to make sure we get this house packed, right? Yeah. Definitely packed. Let them know about the activities. Let them know what we do here. And then make sure you actually keep coming for a safe place. You all so much for joining us, and I'll holler at y'all next time. Appreciate it. Thank you.